Okumura is a dedicated otaku who runs a manga club mainly to enjoy his favorite 2D waifu Lilio. But one day, a girl named Risa walks in and asks to join the club. Okumura, traumatized by past experiences, wonders why a girl would want to join a club dedicated to jock and mommy milkers. He then decides that he needs to find a way to get rid of her. Soon, his chance comes when the girl gets excited by the dolls on the shelf. He thinks that showing her the strippable figurines will send the message, but to his surprise, Risa criticizes the color of their panties, suggesting a better alternative. This leaves Okumura torn between kicking her out and seeing her as a kindred spirit. But Risa apologizes for her weirdness and for judging his taste. However, Okumura is curious how a girl could be interested in such things. She then explains that she's always been a bit unusual and shy. Okumura encourages her love for Lilio, but Risa soon claims that no one loves the fictional character more than she does. Hearing this, Okumura scoffs and Risa challenges him, explaining that she often imagines herself as Lilio because no boys are interested in her. Okumura doesn't believe that he has competition, but suddenly Risa notices a movie on the screen and begins to fangirl over it. Forgetting that he was supposed to kick her out, they ended up watching scenes from one of Lilio's movies, screaming with excitement together. Soon, Okumura realizes that she's the perfect Lilio fan for the club, but her being a 3D girl is a deal-breaker for him. Risa then blushes and asks Okumura for a favor, revealing she has a weird hobby she's never shared with anyone. However, Okumura reassures her with some corny anime lines which he learned from his senpai. Feeling encouraged, Risa then reveals her cosplay collection and her dream of making Cosrums. Okumura is shocked by this, but Risa insists that he shouldn't judge his own kind. She explains that her obsession started as a kid, but she kept it secret until she saw other girls at events and realized it was okay. Now she proudly embraces her cosplay kink and hopes to make a costume for Lilio. Okumura then apologizes for judging and asks how he can help. Upon hearing this, Risa asks if he'll take pictures of her in cosplay for the club. But Okumura questions why he has to do this, and Risa explains she wouldn't trust a stranger and feels safer with someone who shares her passion for Lilio. Grateful for his understanding, Risa insists it must be the heavenly fate that put them together and asks if she can join the club. Initially, Okumura remembers that it's been an all-male club so far, but agrees for the sake of the culture. Risa is thrilled, and Okumura assures her he's only into 2D girls who can't talk back, so he won't be affected by her cosplay. However, Risa seems to take that as a challenge and starts taking off her skirt, catching Okumura off guard. He then blames Risa for assaulting his eyes, but she innocently explains that she just wants to show off one of her costumes. The otaku virgin then quickly covers the windows with a board so no one else gets a peek. While he panics, Risa calmly puts on her costume, does her makeup, fixes her hair, and steps forward for the reveal. But when Okumura turns around, he can't believe his eyes, as it felt like seeing a real-life Lilio. He even gets a nosebleed when she says Lilio's catchphrase. He manages to get back up, but he's definitely not okay, stunned by how much she resembles Lilio. As he's still recovering, Risa shows him the fresh panties she chose for the costume and asks his opinion, turning around to reveal her big jacket, causing Okumura's virgin soul to leave his body. Later, Okumura wakes up with his head on Risa's lap, who has been worried sick. She then mentions that she will begin her debut photo shoot the next day, causing Okumura to turn into a blushing mess once again. The next morning, he enters crisis mode, wondering if he's falling in love with a real girl after swearing loyalty to his favorite manga page. Suddenly, Risa walks in and finds him watching a rare episode she's never seen. She then asks him to give her the rundown, and Okumura eagerly geeks out. But when she asks how he knows so much, he offers to show her his research methods. They soon grab some gamepads and start gaming, with Okumura thinking that he has nothing to worry about. Suddenly, Risa asks to pause the game, stopping on a part where Lilio's treasure is in full view. Okumura wonders if she's even more down bad than he is, but she pulls out her phone to take pictures so her cosplay can be as realistic as possible. Her dedication is paying off, as Okumura almost loses it at the sight of her dedication. At that moment, Risa decides to get into character and starts stripping on the spot. Okumura quickly grabs the board while trying to convince himself he's simply impressed by her dedication. He then turns around to see her new one-piece costume and agrees to take photos of her. After setting up a plain backdrop, Risa starts posing, and Okumura immediately recognizes the poses from the manga, which makes him tear up. She changes into another outfit, and although Okumura has no idea what he's doing, he's actually having a lot of fun. However, when Risa looks at the pictures, she's happy with the results and glad her love for Lilio has come through. While on the other hand, Okumura still finds it surreal that she loves Lilio this much. She then tells him that she's ready to change back, so Okumura tries to give her some space until she informs him that her zipper is stuck and she needs his help to undress. He quickly tugs at the zipper and looks away before catching a glimpse of her melons. However, fate intervenes, causing them to trip and fall into his arms. She then thanks him for catching her, but points out that he also caught something else. Hearing this, Okumura almost had a heart attack, swearing it was an accident. But Risa says it's okay and asks him for some privacy to change, so he grabs his bag and runs from the crime scene. Once she changes back, she turns red and wonders why her heart is beating so fast, then runs home quickly to deal with whatever feelings she might have caught from him. The next day, the principal gets a surprise enrollment from a famous model who seems to have a thing against manga and Okumura's face. When she heads to class, all the boys become raging simps, drooling over her perfect body, while the rest of the girls become NPCs. However, Mikuri asks the losers if they have a manga club, and one guy thinks he's about to get lucky until she says that she hates manga. Meanwhile, Okumura looks like a steaming pile of regret as he remembers the moment he touched heaven and blames fate for his turmoil. He then heads for the club, hoping Risa isn't there, but the pink-haired lunatic is already waiting for him. There they share an awkward moment before Okumura brings up all the commotion of that morning. Risa then informs him that a new student joined their class that day, and she happens to be a famous model who's really cute. Okumura is surprised that Risa would say that until she starts geeking out over how perfect the model would be as Liliel's best friend. Just then, Risa pulls out an old camera, which Okumura recognizes as the one his senpai used to take pictures of the club's regular activities. However, Risa notices Okumura looking fondly at the pictures and apologizes for forcing him to go along with her demands. She then asks what he wants to do instead. But surprisingly, Okumura suggests taking pictures of her cosplay, as he honestly found it quite fun the last time. This caused her to cry rivers from his compliment, overjoyed to have his consent, and began to throw off her clothes for their first round of photos. Suddenly, Risa remembered that she couldn't pack her cosplay since the teachers were searching all the bags earlier, so she comes up with another idea and drags Okumura to an empty classroom. There, Risa suggests that he take practice shots of her in her uniform. But as sets up the camera, Okumura wonders why he's getting worked up since she's not Liliel. They soon start the photo shoot, but when Risa looks at the photos, she becomes lifeless, thinking she looks ugly. Okumura then reassures her, thinking she's just a normal amount of ugly, but Risa explains she wants to look like Liliel and apologizes for not being 2D. Suddenly, she has a brilliant idea to pretend her uniform is part of the cosplay. She takes off her glasses, shortens her skirt, and adds a bit of makeup until she looks like Sakura's level of attractive. Okumura wonders if he has a thing for useless girls but tries to focus on his devotion to Liliel. However, Risa thinks her pose is too boring and tries to amp it up by striking more provocative poses. Not long after, her glasses fall down and she bends to grab them, seeing a perfect aerial view. Okumura starts snapping away. But Risa accidentally hits her head on the way up and ends up falling onto Okumura again, who's never experienced anything like this before, causing him to pass out from too much excitement. Afterward, Risa looks at the pictures and blushes when she realizes she wasn't wearing cosplay underwear. She quickly demands he delete all her pictures. But suddenly, an announcement calls Risa to the faculty office and she runs out to attend to it, while Okumura decides to keep some of the pictures for the memories he'll be needing for his little friend every night. Meanwhile, all the boys crowd around Mikari as she enters the club building, trying to get her attention. But another girl accidentally spills water on her and an embarrassed Mikari runs off to be alone. Tired of being alone, Okumura hears the commotion outside and goes to check it out. However, Mikari stumbles into the manga club and Okumura recognizes her from his childhood. She leaps into his arms, remembering how 5 years ago she had asked Okumura if he had a crush on anyone, and the tiny dumbass had proclaimed his love for Liliel because she could never do him dirty. In the present, the boys continue to search the hallways for her, so Okumura closes the door and blocks the window to escape being branded a traitor. He then asks her why she suddenly hugged him, and she says she was hoping to make him blush. But Okumura asks Mikari why she's wet. However, she plays it off and asks if she can dry her clothes there. While Okumura buries his head in his manga, she starts taking off every layer of her clothes. He then tells her to stop messing around and keep her underwear on, but when she tells him he can look, he catches a glimpse of her chest and panics. She soon lies down on the couch, hoping to take a nap, and asks if he would like to join her. But Mikari enjoys teasing the helpless loser and asks if he thinks she's cute. When he says she's always been cute, she blushes and insists she's even cuter now as a famous model. Surprised, Okumura drops his Liliel manga and slips on it, ending up right on top of her. She holds him tight while he tries to leave, giving him a nightmare situation. But she asks to stay in that position just a little while longer. However, Okumura starts taking off his jacket, making Mikari rethink her actions since she's not ready to go that far. He simply covers her up so she doesn't catch a cold, begging his Liliel manga for forgiveness. Feeling rejected, Mikari puts her clothes back on and asks if he has a crush on anyone. Though the first person he thinks of is Riza, he claims he'll never cheat on Lilial, convincing himself that Riza only came to mind because of her cosplay. Mikari soon grabs her bag, realizing he's still the same, and tells him she hates him. Later, she hangs out on the rooftop, wondering why she doesn't just tell him that she likes him. She then remembers how she first got scouted as a model, thinking Okumura would finally like her if everyone else did too. Her manager even asked why she had a crush on such a bottom feeder when she couldn't have anyone she wanted. She then remembered how Okumura protected her from bullies who made fun of her hair. Because of this, she got into his favorite manga and styled her hair to look like Lilial's. She then returned to the park and tried to get him to play with her, but he wasn't interested until she mentioned the manga. However, the rest of the boys started swooning over her at a young age, but Okumura was the only one who never paid her attention, which is why she fell in love with him. It was then when she decided that she couldn't betray him like other 3D girls, aiming to become an angel for him, working hard so he'd finally notice her. Mikari can't believe she's no better than the drooling simps that chase after her, except she's chasing a miserable loner who might marry a cardboard cutout. Suddenly, she notices the manga club from the roof and sees a girl walk up to Okumura. Inside the club, Risa starts her routine of stripping, while Okumura blocks the windows, sending Mikari running down to investigate. But when she arrives, she tears up seeing Okumura with a 3D girl and calls him a liar and a cheat. However, Risa walks up to her and asks if she joined her cosplay, shocking Mikari. Risa explains all the shenanigans to Mikari, who thinks this is the weirdest kink she's ever seen. She wonders how Risa has no shame, but to Okumura's surprise, Risa admits she does feel embarrassed, yet her love for Lilial outweighs her shame. Mikari doesn't buy it until she sees Okumura's awestruck face, realizing Lilial really is the only way to his heart. Risa then asks Mikari if she'd like to cosplay with her, making Okumura warn her not to get her hopes up, but to his surprise, Mikari agrees without hesitation. The scene then flashes back to how Okumura paused before answering the question about his crush, which means there's a possibility the dense fool might fall for the cosplay Lilial too. But when Risa tells Mikari she'll be cosplaying as Muriella, Mikari asks why she has to be the third wheel best friend. But when Okumura compliments her for still following the manga, Mikari drags Risa behind a whiteboard, insisting on playing Lilial since that's who Okumura likes. Realizing that Risa is too dense to understand and that she can't possibly reveal her feelings, she suddenly claims that she loves Lilial that much. Upon hearing this, Risa takes off her Lilial costume right off her body. However, when Mikari sees the mountains Risa's packing, she gets humbled and sticks to being the third wheel best friend. Seeking approval, Mikari asks Okumura if he likes Muriella, but she isn't prepared for the intense geek-out session detailing the reasons why flat chests are acceptable with a dump truck behind her. Unfortunately, Okumura stays loyal to Lilial and only sees Muriella as a sister. Soon after accepting her fate, Risa offers to take her measurements for a costume. But when Mikari asks if it'll take her a month to make, Risa assures her she'll be done that night. The next morning, Mikari heads to the manga club only to find Risa in her normal form, asking for some more measurements. Okumura casually explains that Risa had stayed up all night, which can be seen from the eye bags. However, Risa suddenly starts yapping about how important it is to get the exact details right, making Mikari wonder who gives a damn about these things. But Risa explains that she strives to make her cosplay as realistic as possible, making Mikari realize that her love for Lilial is no joke. When she finally finishes the costume, Mikari almost explodes when she sees a tiny string that Risa is calling a costume. However, Okumura reminds her that's her squad uniform, but Mikari can't help but think it's worse than being in her birthday suit. She then notices Risa's costume is just as revealing, but when Risa says she's going to wear it without hesitation, she decides she can't lose her and summons her inner demons. Later, Okumura looks away, but that doesn't stop him from hearing all the details of the girls' changing session, which features Mikari's badly hidden jealousy of Risa's watermelons. She soon notices that Risa is strangely into it for otaku reasons, so Mikari is hardly surprised to discover the girl has no friends. While Okumura sits in pure silence, the girls put the finishing touches on their hair and makeup for their debut. Upon finishing, Mikari can even hardly recognize her own reflection, but she hopes Okumura can finally look her way. As they step out and tell Okumura he can finally look, his brain overloads from all the exposure and passes out. When our virgin regains his composure, he compliments Mikari on looking perfectly like Muriella, and Mikari can't believe all her dreams are coming true. However, they soon turn into nightmares when Okumura dumps her for Lilial. Just then, Mikari realizes that even though she was never a fan of the manga, she always liked Muriella. To her, Muriella was the loser third wheel, thirsting after a bonehead who couldn't see past a blonde wig and Mount Everest. Muriella would scream for him to look at her, but she was always ignored. Feeling just like her, Mikari screams out and asks why he won't look at her. However, these idiots just think that she's getting into character and praise her delivery. She soon remembers Okumura liking Muriela's jacket and asks if hers is doing the job too. This causes him to start simping so hard, so Mikari teases him and asks if he loves her. He readily professes his love, which is something Mikari has been waiting 10 years to hear, although when she thinks about it, it's pretty pathetic, but not any less than you getting hard from watching an anime recap. Next, Risa pulls out the poses they'll be trying, and even though Mikari's contract doesn't allow it, she decides to go along with it. After setting up the backdrop, Risa tells Mikari she's free to back out if she's too embarrassed, but Mikari takes one more look at Risa's ballistic missiles and says hell no. Mikari steps forward, and Okumura realizes the deep trouble he's in and that he can't allow the shield hero to rise. Their first pose is for Lilio to heal Muriela by laying her hands on her ballistic missiles, which I can't show you due to obvious reasons. As they try to reenact the scene, Okumura tries his hardest to stop his nose from bleeding. However, Mikari is distracted by Okumura's praise, so when Lilio touches her chocolate chips, she accidentally makes her forbidden emote. Risa then praises her for making it look so realistic, and Mikari starts to question what exactly is going on here. But when Okumura pitches in and assures her she's doing a good job, Mikari gets embarrassed that he just witnessed that. Lilio then tells her it's time for her to start her healing infusion, so when Mikari places her hands on Risa's ballistic missiles, he can't help but lose his composure. Mikari wishes he would simp for her that way, so she insists that Lilio give her some more of that good healing. But when she tries to do so, she trips and gets stuck on Lilio's outfit. Risa soon asks for his help, but Mikari hates the idea of Okumura touching Lilio's missiles. Accepting that he has no choice, Okumura can't believe this is happening and tries to pretend they're sandbags. However, he still can't get them loose, so the only option is to unhook it, causing the whole package to be revealed. Later on, the team talks more about Muriela's backstory, making Okumura excited that Mikari is a creepy otaku just like him. She tries to deny it until she hears how much he enjoys talking about it with her and realizes that she never actually tried liking the things that he likes. This whole time, the big nerd was just happy that his childhood friend likes the same manga as him. Risa notices how much fun they're having and starts to look gloomy, so she thanks Mikari for helping out with the costume. But suddenly, Mikari breaks the news that they can't use the pictures due to her modeling contract, which causes Risa's soul to leave her body. However, Mikari says she can see why they like cosplay so much and wouldn't mind doing it again. As she heads out, she realizes she's still got time to bag her man, so there's no need to worry. After she's gone, Risa wonders what that feeling was, but Okumura snaps her out of it. She then suggests they finally put the pictures together for a cosplay album and sell them at the next event, as she's already signed up for one, which gives them about a week to pull it off. Okumura then offers to help with the editing, but Risa assures him that he doesn't have to do that. However, he tells her they'll do it together since that's what he promised and he's been having tons of fun anyway. That night, they manage to escape the school sweep, so they work overnight in the club. They soon get started, and Risa shows Okumura the ropes, but by her calculations, they'll take a ton of time to do 500 pictures. Risa starts to panic, thinking they should have started earlier, so Okumura grabs her hand and assures her they can make it work together. Just then, the security guard calls out for anyone in the room, so Okumura pins her to a wall and offers to give himself up if it comes to it. Thankfully, the guard remembers that he isn't paid enough for this and leaves. However, Risa stays stunned until she realizes she's not alone anymore, so she gets to work. A week later, they both look like they've just escaped from their uncle's basement, but the work is finally finished. However, when Mikari finds out they were up all night and are heading to an event together, she directly asks Risa how she feels about Okumura. Meanwhile, Okumura is wondering if the outing qualifies as a date. He tries to convince himself it's just a club event, but he can't stop worrying about what to wear. He then assumes Risa probably didn't think much about her outfit, but in reality, she tore her room apart looking for one. When Risa answers Mikari's question, she says Okumura is very supportive, kind of like Ashford. So Mikari points out that Risa is basically admitting she's into Okumura. Turns out, Risa herself had wondered if she was indeed falling for his otaka riz while choosing an outfit, feeling embarrassed without knowing why. Later, Okumura arrives at the train station, still fussing over his outfit, expecting Risa to show up looking casual. However, when she arrives, Okumura is stunned by how great she looks without her glasses and turns red. Risa worries about looking ridiculous, but Okumura compliments her, shocked at her fashion sense. She didn't have much at first, but after seeing some outrageous outfits online, she called Mikari for help. Mikari agreed to assist her the next day, dressing her in an outfit that made her look normal. When Risa thanked her, Mikari insisted they were even since Risa had made a costume for her. Now Risa and Okumura are the only ones on the train, so Okumura suggests they kill some time before the event. Risa feels silly for overthinking things since Okumura seems so calm, but he's actually on the verge of a meltdown as well. Now that they're dressed up, they totally look like a couple. To ease any tension, Okumura tries to break the ice with a dating sim topic like the weather, but is unprepared when Risa actually has something to say about it. He tries again and asks if she'd like to hang out somewhere. But when they arrive at the convention, it's not open yet. So they try to karaoke bar next, but that place is closed too. Okumura soon notices Risa looking a bit down, so they head to a manga cafe, but all the rooms are taken. Finally, Risa stops him, revealing her feet are hurting from all the walking in heels. As Okumura checks if she's okay, he realizes it's his fault for not noticing. They then sit together with nothing to do until Risa mentions a spin-off episode of Lilial that aired last night. This quickly made them forget their troubles and start geeking out over Lilial, making Risa happy. After this, Okumura apologizes for not taking better care of her, but she insists she always has fun with him. This experience then made Okumura realize that maybe 3 gi girls aren't so bad if they're like Risa. Suddenly, Risa notices it's almost time for the event, so they head to the hall to set up. Okumura is underwhelmed by the size of the event, but when Risa assures him it's one of the big ones, she starts getting nervous. When they reach their booth, Okumura suggests setting up their gear until Risa breaks the news that they forgot to print covers or posters. He then tries to control his frustration as Risa points out their neighbor's well-done costume, unlike their blank covers. To make matters worse, she handwrote the titles on the DVDs, making them look shady. Just then, their neighbor comes over to greet them, surprising Risa by cosplaying as a recent character. Magino asks what they're selling, and Risa explains they're newbies and forgot a bunch of stuff. But when Risa says it's a Lilial Cosrum, Magino is shocked at how outdated her choice is and advises that she won't get much attention if she doesn't cosplay current characters. However, Magino reassures her that everyone's first time is tough, but she can make it work if she's good at sales. Okumura then asks Risa if she brought her costume so people can at least know what they're selling. However, Risa wants to try selling as herself, feeling intimidated by the other cosplayers. Despite Okumura's assurance that her cosplay is much cuter than the neighboring cosplayers, Risa continues to doubt herself. The event officially begins and the air is filled with the smell and desperation as people like you start to enter the room. Okumura and Risa's booth gains no attention while Magino is selling out instantly. Magino and her assistant soon come over to encourage Risa to be a literal poster girl and take charge, but they realize that neither Risa nor Okumura is comfortable talking to strangers, highlighting their otaku status. Finally, the customer approaches their booth but hesitates when Risa mentions that it's a cosplay of Lilial, who is considered old and overdone. Okumura suddenly realizes that if they attract customers, they'll see revealing content of Risa, and he starts to dislike the idea. He feels relieved when the customer backs out and almost hopes no one buys from them. Just then, another customer approaches and asks if Risa is in the Cosrum. Risa confirms it, but when the man asks if there are explicit shots, Okumura becomes strangely defensive. Risa then explains that it wasn't an OnLife's photo shoot, causing the customer to leave, claiming it's too expensive. Okumura asks if the pictures really have zero edge potential content, and Risa explains she can't sell any softcore content since she's not of age yet. Okumura is stunned as he asks what he's been getting nosebleeds over all this time, and Risa explains that those were just for her. Suddenly, Risa suggests they pack up and leave since no one's going to buy ancient cosplay with no provocative content. However, Okumura realizes he's been a bad partner and tells Risa to change into her Lilial costume. He turns red and apologizes for trying to keep the Lilial content to himself, but since it's her dream for everyone to see her cosplay, he insists on helping her. Risa worries that her cosplay won't be good enough, but Okumura assures her that her cosplay is the cutest in the world and admits that he even felt like Lilial was real. Before Risa can process what kind of confession that was, Okumura whisks her to the changing rooms. They don't have much time until the end of the event, so Risa promises to change as fast as she can. Okumura paces outside like a father when he suddenly hears deep voices coming from the women's changing rooms. He tries to tell the men off, but they inform him they're actually women too. So he quickly apologizes for his mistake, but the girls tell him that it's fine. While he waits, Okumura checks out Magino's photo shoot, which is attracting a lot of attention. But he overhears 2 photographers lamenting how boring this year's cosplay is. Meanwhile, Risa arrives at the changing room and is overwhelmed by the scene. Though most people are changing out of their costumes to leave, Risa finds a spot and starts to get ready, only to realize she forgot to pack a wig cap and other essential items. At this rate, there's no way she can pull off being Lilial. Suddenly, one of the girls walks up and offers her a wig cap, shocking her. In seconds, a swarm of helpful otakus surrounds her, asking what she needs and encouraging her since it's her first time. Thanks to their help, she's able to suit up. But when the girls discover she made the costume herself, they are very impressed. Risa then offers to return their items, but the girls explain that everyone has received help from other cosplayers at some point, so she should repay the favor to someone else in the future. One of the girls recognizes Risa from her first event and is glad to see her finally make it back. When Risa hears the photo booth will be closing soon, she turns around and flashes the girls, who insist she can't go out without covering up. One of them gives her a pair of short pants, and Risa finally adds the finishing touches, making even the girls blush. On her way out, Risa runs into a cosplay guy who tells her how worried Okumura was and remarks on what a great partner she has. Outside, Okumura waits for Risa's debut, and just in the nick of time, Risa walks out confidently and calls out for Ashford. As the SHIELD heroes start to rise, Risa hurries toward Okumura, feeling a bit nervous. Magino's assistant, overwhelmed with nostalgia, starts to fangirl over Lilial, attempting to control his excitement so Magino doesn't notice. Meanwhile, the two potential customers from earlier regret their missed chance, and other men start canceling their rides. Okumura and Risa are unsure of how to proceed, and as Risa searches for a spot for photos, she is suddenly surrounded by a crowd of eager men. However, Magino suggests to her photographer that he take pictures of Risa, but the photographer is so overwhelmed that he nearly screams in excitement. But Magino encourages him to lead the group of fellow fans and clear space for her photo shoot, advising them to form a semicircle. Okumura then thanked him for his help, but the photographer was simply angling for the best shot. Risa also bows in gratitude, triggering a frenzy of camera flashes. As Okumura feels anxious, Risa begins to pose, though he is unable to make his way through the flock of admirers. Overwhelmed by all the requests, Risa stumbles, but thankfully her undergarments prevent any mishaps. Okumura soon overhears some men commenting on her lack of experience, while others find her amateur status appealing. Recognizing the poses from a manga and anime, Magino deduces that Risa is a die-hard Lilial fan. He asks the photographer for his thoughts, who remains loyal but admits Risa's likeness to Lilial is astonishing. One of the seasoned cosplay critics remarks that despite her inexperience, Risa's portrayal is so authentic, it seems like the real Lilial has come to life. Risa wonders if her passion for Lilial is shining through, and when Ojuno gives the fanbase one more minute, Risa recalls her mother's disapproval of her interests, prompting her to create costumes in secret. Now she can openly express her love for her favorite character due to the help of Okumura, and Risa strikes a final pose, leaving him in awe. As the crowd disperses, aware of what they'll do with the photos, Okumura apologizes to Risa for not capturing a single shot and offers to take one now. But when Risa attempts to pose again, the event's end has left her too relaxed. So she asks Okumura for a redo while in character, but he insists the candid moment is perfect. With the event wrapping up and the changing rooms closing, a few fans rush to ask Risa for her social media handles. But she apologizes, saying that she doesn't have anything whatsoever. Magino then steps in to escort her before things get out of hand, and as Risa departs, the fans agree she must be an angel. Back in the changing rooms, Risa takes selfies with the other girls, and even a cosplay guy requests an exclusive photo. Suddenly, Magino asks for help removing her costume, and Risa is thrilled to touch it. She then reveals that she owns an array of masks thanks to her animal-themed cosplay, though she doesn't mind inhaling fur for her love of the culture. Soon, the other girls share similar struggles with their cosplay commitments. One also recounts wearing fangs on a train, while an elf cosplayer shares how her little brother was terrified upon finding her wig soaking in the tub. Another mentions her wig falling on the TV, leading to an accidental ring cosplay. A crossdresser then returns to their real form, sharing how their family mistakenly thought they were dating multiple people due to finding male jackets. But then the female cosplayer asks Risa if she has any cosplay challenges, admiring her cuteness and great figure. However, Risa complains about her short stature and the challenge of carrying her sizable chest, which makes finding clothes in her size difficult. The other women empathize with her struggles and form a support group for those similarly endowed. Risa wishes she could try different cosplay styles, but she feels cursed to only look good in revealing outfits. When the girls compliment her cute outfit, Risa admits she had professional help, prompting them to ask what she usually wears. She then shows them a picture of her usual attire, and the girls are horrified but keep their reactions to themselves. She soon remembers the shorts she borrowed and asks about the elf lady. But when told the elf lady has left, Risa panics, insisting on returning them. Before leaving, she thanks the girls for their help, and Magino expresses hope to see her at Summer Comiket. She then takes one last look at the girls, bows, and dashes off with dreams of Summer Comiket in her mind. At the station, Okumura waits for Risa. Upon arrival, she starts shouting for the elf lady, prompting concerned women to join her. Okumura can't believe what he's seeing. Eventually, the elf lady appears in her regular form and asks Okumura if he's Risa's partner. She then advises Risa to lower her voice as she works nearby. Risa nervously hands over the shorts, which she could have kept, and the elf lady asks about the event. She then reveals that she made mistakes, but the elf lady reassures her that everyone struggles initially, mentioning that even Mayura sold 0 DVDs on her first day. Having inspired by Mayura, Risa asks about her absence, and the elf lady sadly explains that Mayura no longer attends cosplay events. This made Okumura wonder, and the elf lady soon explains that things happened which made her gradually stop cosplaying. On the train, Okumura asks if Mayura was the cosplayer Risa had mentioned. But when Risa confirms, Okumura wonders how to cheer her up. Surprisingly, Risa tells him not to worry, determined to meet Mayura at a future event with her new friends. She then shares her goal of attending Summer Comiket and improving her cosplays. Seeing this, Okumura realizes he doesn't need to worry, noting that Risa is even more passionate about 2D characters than he is. After a moment of silence, Risa asks if he'll continue helping her, catching Okumura off guard. She then explains that his support has been crucial, causing him to blush, and Risa goes further, describing how her heart races when he's nearby, recalling the times he's been close to her. This causes Okumura to blush more as he realizes his shared feelings, and suddenly Risa then says she finally understands what this feeling is and calls it love. However, before Okumura can fully process his emotions, Risa clarifies she loves having him as a cosplay partner, deflating Okumura's hopes. But strangely, he also feels relieved to find that he's not in love after all. But unbeknownst to them, they're both just so dumb that not even your mother could help them. The next day, Mikari starts to panic about Risa and Okumura's almost date. She thinks it would have been the perfect chance for Risa to make a move on Okumura, so she heads to the manga club to check on them. However, when she arrives, she finds Risa alone and only in her underwear. Risa thanks Mikari for helping with her clothes, but Mikari immediately demands to know if Risa seduced Okumura at the event. Risa explains that she only loves Okumura as a photographer, which makes Mikari incredulous that someone's IQ could drop so low. Despite that, Mikari is relieved that she still has a chance with Okumura. Suddenly, Risa gets called for extra classes and rushes off, asking Mikari to look after her things while she's gone. As Mikari waits, Risa dashes down the hall and bumps into one of the teachers, who advises her not to get any cuts or bruises that could ruin her good looks. Risa, surprised by the compliment, thanks the teacher and continues on her way. Later, Okumura returns to the manga club and finds Mikari trying on Lilia's costume. Initially, Mikari gets embarrassed, realizing she doesn't have the melons to fill out the costume, but Okumura is struggling to breathe regardless. Mikari is shocked at how easily he gets aroused, but is secretly glad that he's into Lilio. Seizing the moment, she jumps into his arms, causing him to get flustered all over again. She then takes it up a notch, encouraging him to touch her wherever he wants, but the pressure becomes too much for Okumura, who starts to feel overwhelmed. Mikari believes he can't possibly resist Lilio, but Okumura says that since Lilio is the waifu of many people, it wouldn't be fair to cross that line with her. However, Mikari finds his naivety cute but wishes he felt that way about her instead. At that moment, Risa returns and sees Okumura and Mikari holding hands. They try to explain, but Risa pushes Okumura aside to take his place. Mikari gets shy, thinking she's not a good Lilio, but Risa reassures her that she can be any character she wants, as that's the magic of cosplay. Okumura joins in, adding that even flat chests have a solid fan base. Mikari is touched by their words, realizing they're just dumb otakus at heart. But then Risa then shows her playful side by trying to peek under Mikari's skirt. Later, Okumura meets up with Ojuno, eager to improve his photography skills for the next event. Ojuno feels honored to be considered a master, but in reality, Okumura just didn't know anyone else to ask. The two head out and arrive at a Japanese-themed studio, where Ojuno explains that the environment is crucial for good photos and essential for selling of copies. Suddenly, Magino appears in a kimono that's so tight it accentuates her curves, prompting Ojuno to rush to help her adjust it, while Okumura is left starstruck. He then welcomes Okumura to the shoot, and Okumura thanks her for letting him observe. Ojuno then begins his masterclass, advising Okumura to be careful with timing and focus, as those are areas even Photoshop can't fix. Next, they discuss the theme of the shoot, considering what they want to convey to the viewer. As the photo shoot starts, Ojuno and Okumura begin taking photos as Magino strikes various poses. Afterward, they compare their photos, and Ojuno teases Okumura for being a total newbie, showing off his own shot that captured Magino's dirty thoughts. They continue practicing, with Magino giving them her best angles. When she sees Okumura's pictures, Ojuno proudly says he's had a good teacher, but Magino deflates his ego by saying the photos look just like Ojuno's. Magino then asks Okumura if they can take some knockier shots, and Okumura hesitantly agrees if she's comfortable with it. However, Magino strikes a more provocative pose, but Okumura is not used to seeing such things. Magino, clearly understanding, reassures him that they're just helping their cosplay partners achieve their dreams. Suddenly, Magino asks if Okumura has a crush on Lilial, suggesting it might explain why he's hesitant. But Okumura denies it, saying he's just uncomfortable. Seeing this, Magino advises him not to bottle up his feelings so he can build stronger relationships with people. Okumura then thanks Magino for the advice and reassures him that since they were table partners at the event, they're basically friends now. Magino also expresses his gratitude to Okumura, explaining that he's rekindled his passion for Lilial cosplay, while adding that photographers always speculate about who will be the next big cosplayer. When Okumura asks for clarification, Magino explains that there are 4 women who currently dominate the cosplay scene, known as the 4 Heavenly Queens of cosplay. These include Nagomi, the Heavenly Wonder, Yoki, the pantyhose lover who drives men wild, Erika Owayuki, the shape-shifting mystery beauty, and Mayura, the thighs that defy lies. However, Magino mentions that there are more than just 4 great cosplayers, but suddenly Okumura asks about Mayura's retirement. Hearing this, Magino immediately confirms that Mayura hasn't appeared since last year's Summer Comic-Con, leaving everyone wondering who will take her place. However, he then recalls the shock he felt when he first saw Riza at the event, a reaction shared by many others, which reminded him of Mayura's impact. He then announces a friendly rivalry, mentioning that it would be less thrilling if Okumura remained a novice photographer. This made Okumura recall that moment from the event and understands why people kept referring to him as Riza's partner. He realizes they're a team and must reach the finish line together. Magino, however, picks up on the fact that Riza is her real name, but he promises to keep her secret as long as she appears at the next cosplay event. The next day, the student council meets and agrees to demote a club in favor of one that is performing better. Meanwhile, Okumura shows Risa his new stash of late-night sword polishing material, and as usual, Risa geeks out over the magazines, excited to try them herself. However, Okumura's mind quickly drifts to unholy thoughts, and he tries to shake off the degeneracy. But when Risa gets excited at the idea of Lilial in chains, Okumura realizes he's outclassed in the freaky department. Inspired by Risa's excitement, she suggests they take pictures of Lilial in peril. So Risa gets into character and Okumura starts snapping away. Remembering Ogino's lessons, he focuses on her bound arms and makes some minor adjustments. With his guidance, Risa strikes the perfect poses, and when she sees the photos, she praises him for improving so much. She's surprised to hear about his lessons with Ogino and is touched that he would go to such lengths for her. He then tells her that they're a team, and if she wants to become cosplay famous, he's willing to put in the effort. Risa admits that she originally only cared about showing her love for Lilial, but after attending the event with Okumura, she started wanting more. She had so much fun, and if going to larger events and sharing her love for Lilial could be even more enjoyable, she's all in. Okumura says he had fun too, and they promise to see how far they can go together. Just then, 2 student council representatives arrive and tell him to open the door. Okumura quickly tells Risa to hide, and when he opens the door, the students inform him that his club is being demoted since it hasn't qualified for full club status in 3 years. As a result, they'll have to give up their room to another club. This crushes the soul of our humble king and Risa, who's been listening silently to their conversation. The student council president then tells them once again to vacate the room if they still can't manage to keep their status as a club. After she leaves, the 2 are left speechless, as they are about to lose the sole thing that is keeping them together. After seeing Okumura spacing out, Risa snaps him out of his daze by giving him a hard slap. If they really have to vacate the room, this means that they'll also have to move all the erotic figurines and sword polishing books. Feeling like everything is lost, Okumura sits in silence and ponders his next move. But suddenly, Risa stands up and gives him a solution to their problem. She reminds him that the decision isn't set in stone yet. Therefore, if they're able to perform their club activities properly, they won't have to leave their club room. She then adds that if they really lose their club room, she hopes that Okumura won't disappear too. Seeing Risa's determination woke Okumura's inner beasts and gave him the push he always needed. He then goes straight to the student council room to negotiate terms with the council president. Turns out there is still some hope for our otaku duo to keep their little goblin cave. However, the catch is that they have to find a teacher who's willing to supervise their club's activities. Then the student council president reiterates that they're not trying to eliminate the manga club, as they're just enforcing the rules, and notes that Okumura is welcome here if he needs any help. The president then gives him a list of advisors for reference, and our otaku king continues his journey once again. However, in the faculty office, Okumura struggles to find a teacher willing to supervise their club. Most of the teachers there are already busy and have their own clubs to handle. Suddenly, Mr. Daddy comes to the rescue and informs Okumura about a new teacher who's just recently joined. As Miss Hanyu is new to the school, chances are she isn't handling any clubs yet. The scene then shifts to Okumura finding Miss Hanyu with some freaky students in the science lab doing God knows what. He then informs Miss Hanyu about the problem he's facing. However, since this is in the middle of the semester, she's currently busy with other work. But as he's about to leave the lab, Okumura feels like he has seen the teacher somewhere before. Somehow, the teacher reminded him of a Milky Elf cosplay which he accidentally blurted out. Hearing this, Miss Hanyu dragged Okumura into the closet to confront him about the name he just said. Turns out, this beautiful teacher was once the famous cosplayer that was referred to as Mayuri. She proceeds to threaten our otaku lord, but suddenly, Okumura tells her that something is pressing against him. This enrages Mayura again, but finally she ends up listening to Okumura's plea. Secretly, she thought that their club was amazing but tried to play it off to hide her feelings. This then reminded her about her previous encounter with Riza, whom she felt was really familiar. She was touched deeply by Riza's development and thought that this encounter was a miracle. However, she insisted on denying the position as Mayuri felt like she had betrayed cosplaying. Seconds later, she lashes out explaining that she quit cosplay for good because she had to pursue her career and that it won't be good for a teacher to be seen on erotic books. Mayuri then adds that she really loves cosplay, but at the end of the day, hobbies are just hobbies and that she can't let them interfere with her work. From the beginning of her journey, she was always ready to quit cosplay when the time came, but did not tell anyone about it. Upon hearing this, Okumura understands the position that Mayura is in and decides to not press her further. However, right before leaving the room, he mumbles to himself and mentions the Milky Elf Kazurum that was in their club room. Mayura quickly took this bait and they both ended up in the manga club's room once again. As Okumura opened the door, he was greeted by Risa fully dressed in her cosplay, which made Mayura speechless. Deep inside, she was very proud of the cosplayer Risa turned into, but quickly went into critique mode, inspecting every edge of Risa's cosplay. Suddenly, she spots her Kazurum lying on the table and pretends to confiscate it. However, Risa explains that this Kazurum inspired her into cosplaying, as Mayura is someone who she looks up to and has been an inspiration for her all this time. Still unaware that she's currently talking to Mayura, Risa continues to elaborate how good of a cosplayer Mayura is. This of course touches Mayura, but she tries to play it cool and leaves the room. But as soon as she goes back to the lab, she rolls around on the floor thinking about how cute Risa is. This encounter activated her mommy mode, which made her want to forfeit all of her mortal possessions to Riza. However, to her surprise, this silent outrage was secretly caught by Okumura. There, he begs once more for Mayura to rethink her decision. She then tells him that his senpais had achievements to report to the school, which led to them getting the room. She adds that cosplay by itself won't be seen as something worth reporting to the school. Okumura, still not willing to give up, tells Mayura that he'll make it happen no matter what. This determination touched her and she finally agreed to become their supervisor. However, she tells Okumura to give her Riza's Kazurum whenever they make some. They then go back to the club room where they ponder about their activity report. Initially, Okumura thought of making a manga himself, but when Mayura came to check up on them, Risa happily greeted her, causing her to want to bring her home. However, upon seeing Okumura's self-drawn manga, she told him that it would not be possible and offered an alternate solution. This alternate solution was voluntarily reading manga to kids in elementary school. To their surprise, no one gave them even the slightest of attention, as these little goblins are busy with their own things. Saddened by the outcome of today's activity, they try to think of something else to do. The next day, they went back to the same class to read them the same manga. However, this time, Risa will be reading to them in Liliel's cosplay. This caught the attention of all the little thirsty goblins who sat around a circle to listen to our mommy's manga reading time. While Liliel read the manga for them, Okumura takes pictures of Liliel for them to include in their activity report. However, on the way home, Risa seemed to be lost in her own thoughts, which prompted Okumura to ask her why. That night, while Sensei was busy minding her own business, she received a call from Eri. Upon receiving the call, Eri informed her about her encounter with the pink-haired girl they met long ago. She then asked her about the upcoming comic hit and a certain costume she had been saving. But Mayuri simply told her that she had thrown it away and that she's a teacher now. Deep down, Mayuri still wanted to do cosplay, but a part of her is ashamed about people finding out her hobby. The next day, Sensei came to the club room to check up on our otaku duo once again. However, she was shocked to find out that the both of them decided to trash yesterday's activity, not wanting to use it for their report. Still speechless, Sensei then tells them that they have to submit something. Turns out, after some reconsideration, both of our weebs decided that this report wasn't good enough. They felt like they were lying to the school and it really bothered them. To them, cosplay was something they were proud of and they did not see any reason to hide it from people. Upon realizing this, the both of them agreed to dump the fake report and submit a new one. After hearing their little story, Sensei could finally see where they're coming from. However, she emphasized the need for a report in order to keep this room. Risa then told her about an upcoming big cosplay event which will be held next week. Instantly, Sensei objected to her idea and tried to tell them that this was a really bad idea. She added that Risa had no idea how the outside world judges people who cosplay. Sensei then insisted on them submitting the fake report in order to protect their club room. However, Risa told her that while it might save their club room, they'll end up losing something else in the process and wasn't open to the idea. These words caused Sensei to have some flashbacks about her cosplaying journey, making her even more frustrated. She then tells them that not everyone will take them seriously even if they're serious about something. But Risa once again stuck to her ideals, telling Sensei that even if she's shy sometimes, she would always be proud of what she loves. She would never lie about her passion and would never betray what she loves. These words touch Sensei's heart as she remembers the first time she met with Risa. Seeing her determination now sparked something inside of her, making Sensei question her betrayal towards cosplay. Now filled with adrenaline, Sensei reminds them that simply attending the cosplay event won't cut it out for the report. She then tells them that they must be the most popular cosplayer there in order to convince both the principal and the student council. The scene then shifts to a manga store where a weird girl buys all the trading cards and merch for an anime character named Kai. On the train, she was showered with stares, judging her appearance and her love for 2D characters. The scene shifts again to Okumura having a call with Ojuno to discuss the upcoming cosplay event. Ojuno then reveals that one of the 4 cosplay queens, Nagomi, will be there, working for an official industry booth. Even her announcement alone garnered 100 correct tweets, and he warns Okumura to look out for her. Back at the studio, the weird girl is surrounded by her assistants who help her change into her costume for the photo shoot. Turns out this girl was Nagomi, who's sworn off 3D men and is determined to be the best 2D girl for Kai. The day of the event finally came, and we then see our favorite gremlins arriving at the venue. Upon entering, they're shocked to see how big the venue is and quickly get nervous. But Okumura reinforces his will once again and is determined to give it their all for their report. On the other hand, Risa, who was reminded of her last event, was filled with cringe and got discouraged instantly. She then asked for the magic words from Okumura, and he shyly told Risa that her Lilial was the cutest in the whole world. This instantly raised their spirits. However, the moment was interrupted by our professional weeb who is accompanied by Magino. Ojuno then starts to tell them about the crowd that Nagomi has gathered, attributing it to the popularity of her cosplay that was all over social media last week. The girls then prepare to change into their cosplays while Ojuno and Okumura scope out the battlefield. On the way, the girls bump into Nagomi, who's busy with her gacha game. Magino then explains that all the people surrounding her are there to support her, a perk of a professional cosplayer. She soon noticed Risa and instantly recognized her as the Lilial from the previous event. She mentioned that her photographer showed her a picture of Lilial, which she thought still looked too 3D. Nervously, Risa asked who Nagomi was cosplaying today. However, she was shocked to see that even Nagomi herself had no idea who she was cosplaying today. Seeing Risa's disappointment, she quickly understands her concerns and tells her that she's used to it. Nagomi then adds that tons of cosplayers pretend to love the characters they're cosplaying. Even if it might seem awful, she continues to tell Risa that she truly loves cosplay and cosplayers. To her, cosplaying is the only time she can transcend into the 2D dimension because Kai deserves the best 2D girl. She then ends their conversation with a question asking whether who loves cosplay more. Before she goes, she reminds her that she'll be here until noon, telling her to not show up before noon to avoid getting shadowed. This interaction disheartened Risa, who thought that she upset Nagomi with her actions. As 2 fans came to greet her, Magino told them Nagomi started some drama with Risa. But to her surprise, Risa was more eager than ever, acknowledging Nagomi as one of the cosplay prodigies, wanting to learn more from her. After her spirits are lifted, they soon enter the dressing room, which is filled with cosplayers. There, everyone rushes to change into their cosplay in order to secure a spot before the event begins. The scene then shifts back to our King Goblin and Little Goblin, who's currently devising a war plan in order to defeat Nagomi. Their plan is to place themselves on the nearest exit to Nagomi's booth, predicting that a lot of people will go home right after seeing her. If enough people stop to get pictures with them, they're certain that they'll create a buzzing crowd. However, as the event is about to start, back at the dressing room, Risa is seen nervously staring at her Lilial costume, remembering Nagomi's parting words. Sensei sneaked into the cosplay festival. It had been a while since she attended one and she had missed these events dearly, but she quickly focused, remembering that she was here to support her students. In Nagomi's room, the costume was ready, and when Nagomi put on her cosplay, she looked absolutely stunning. Nagomi complimented the costume, but her manager noticed that Nagomi seemed distracted, still thinking about Riza. Nagomi confessed that Riza reminded her of Mayuri, who also only cosplayed as one favorite character. Nagomi wasn't fond of this, as she always changed her cosplays to surpass Mayuri, but Mayuri always outperformed her in sales with just one character. This had made Nagomi develop a dislike for cosplayers like Mayuri. Nagomi asked not to be seen as a villain, as she believed Risa had great potential but wasn't using it, which frustrated her. She feared that, like Mayuri, Risa would burn out eventually. The manager understood and asked if Nagomi was angry with Riza. Nagomi clarified that while she had said negative things, she didn't truly dislike Riza. She just worried that if Risa didn't get it together, she wouldn't last long in the scene. Magino, already dressed in her costume, noticed that Risa was still sitting on the floor, not yet ready. Risa suggested they go without her, but Magino headed out and met Ojino and Okumura. Okumura asked where Risa was, and Magino reassured him that there was no need to worry. Risa just hadn't changed yet. She told Okumura to help Risa if she struggled. Suddenly, they spotted Nagomi, and Okumura immediately noticed how different she was from the others, though Lilial was still a strong competitor. Nagomi saw Okumura and began to get nervous, realizing he was right there. The manager noted that Nagomi was perhaps too absorbed in her 2D character obsession. Nagomi thought that maybe the gods were rewarding her and decided to fully embrace her character, quirks and all. She read up on her character, immersed herself in the persona, and focused on perfecting the smile and mannerisms. Ojino was puzzled by the lack of attendees even after an hour had passed. They decided to head to the main stand, where they realized that the entire crowd was outside, photographing Nagomi's cosplay. Okumura was surprised, and Ojino explained that there were so many people there wasn't enough room inside, so they all moved outside. The manager suggested Nagomi take a break to rest, drink, and eat, but Nagomi insisted she couldn't break character, though she was still waiting to see her Kai. Magino mentioned they would have to wait until all the photographers were done. She also noticed how determined Okumura was, not wanting to give up. Okumura then decided to call Riza, who had been missing for a while. Riza answered, saying she couldn't find her skirt anywhere. Sensei, observing Okumura, Magino, and Ojino, listened in. Riza explained that she was sure she brought her skirt, and Magino speculated that someone might have accidentally taken it. However, questioning all the cosplayers wasn't feasible at that moment. They weren't sure what to do, and Okumura said he checked the lost and found. Risa assured them it was fine but was clearly upset, starting to cry as she confessed that losing the skirt made her feel unworthy of wearing her cosplay. Magino noted that Risa still hadn't gotten over Nagomi's words, and Okumura decided to clarify things. A few minutes later, Okumura, upset by how Nagomi's words had affected Risa, sat next to her and encouraged her not to give up, reminding her of their promise to each other. He admitted he didn't know exactly how to comfort her, but Risa's thoughts drifted to her report. Okumura told her to forget about the report for now. What mattered was the present moment and her love for cosplay. Risa had started cosplaying out of her love for Lilial. Okumura urged her to stop overthinking, questioning why she even started cosplaying in the first place. Risa, feeling even more disheartened, found that Okumura's words struck a nerve. Okumura stood up and left, telling Magino and Ojino to focus on their own matters, as this was between him and Risa. Sensing Risa's despair, Sensei decided to step in. She approached Risa, who immediately recognized her. Sensei said she had overheard everything and asked Risa what she planned to do next. Risa started crying again, saying she had never seen Okumura so angry and felt responsible for everything. Sensei comforted her, assuring her that she shouldn't blame herself. Risa lamented that despite making so many promises, things still hadn't gone well. Sensei shared her own story, revealing that she had never had friends and often sat alone because of her unusual interests. But one day, Mayura showed her a cosplay she wanted to make, and the home economics teacher supported her. Sensei laughed, saying that it was only thanks to that support that she became a home economics teacher. Patting Risa on the head, Sensei told her that it's impossible to escape from what you truly want to do. She said she would attend to her own matters and left, leaving Risa feeling even more dejected, thinking she had disappointed both Okumura and Sensei. Meanwhile, Okumura was walking through the hall, questioning cosplayers to see if anyone had accidentally taken Lilial's skirt. Magino and Ojino, watching this, remember how Okumura had promised to help Risa, highlighting their commitment to facing challenges together. Magino remarked that Okumura was so kind, making her a bit envious. As Risa sat unsure of what to do, Mayura appeared in her cosplay before her. Risa was surprised to see her and didn't realize that Mayura was actually Sensei. Risa began to explain everything to Mayura, including her decision to pursue cosplay, but now feeling lost and uncertain if she should continue. Mayura acknowledged the complexity of the situation, explaining that she initially started cosplaying for herself, wanting to change something about herself, but eventually did it for the pure joy of it. Mayura had returned to offer her strength to Riza. She hugged Riza, and in that moment, Riza recognized that Mayura was Sensei. Mayura asked if Riza wanted to continue cosplaying, reminding her that she had a partner who shared her passion. Just then, Okumura ran up and announced that they had found the skirt. Riza began to cry as Okumura handed it back to her, urging her not to forget her passion, as that's what truly mattered. A true otaku, he said, would never judge someone else's interests. Okumura emphasized that it's not about meeting societal expectations or struggling with pressure. What's important is her love for cosplay. He reassured Riza that it wasn't about Lilial or anyone else. It was about her, as an individual who loves cosplay. Ojino then approached, informing Okumura that Nagomi's photo shoot would soon be over, giving them only 10 minutes to find new fans. However, Riza mentioned that it would take her an hour to get into costume, leaving little time. Okumura was at a loss until Mayura appeared and offered her help. Ojino and Okumura were surprised to see Mayura. She told Riza to persevere, reminding her that her partner had worked hard. As their club advisor, she promised to help buy them time. The manager announced that it was time to wrap things up, but Nagomi insisted on staying since Mr. Kai had not yet arrived. However, the manager cautioned her not to overdo it. Okumura, hearing that everyone was about to leave, wondered how he could stop them. Just then, Mayura appeared, and everyone, including Nagomi and one of Mayura's distant friends, immediately noticed her. They all rushed over to Mayura's booth, which instantly annoyed Nagomi. Feeling frustrated, Nagomi removed her lower clothing to show off her jiakte, declaring that she still had things to do. She resolved to compete with Mayura, as she had always lost to her in the past, and was determined not to lose this time. The group didn't know whom to focus on, and Okumura, observing the situation, realized he needed to calm himself. He noted that as soon as Mayura transformed, she became a different person, something she wanted in order to give the next generation a chance. Nagomi, disheartened, felt overshadowed by Mayura, who had always excelled but preferred to stay in the background. What irritated Nagomi most was that Mayura was loved for her character, not for being herself, and this bothered Nagomi deeply. She couldn't understand why people didn't love their characters the way she thought they should, and began to question whether cosplaying was truly worth it. She realized that she only loved Mr. Kai and valued herself more than any of her characters. Mayura, however, appreciated Nagomi's dedication, and Ojino mentioned that cosplayers should aim for such a high level, as it represented the pinnacle of the craft. Meanwhile, Riza put on her costume, knowing it wasn't perfect, but remembered Okumura's support. Nagomi understood that she was giving her best effort, but no matter where Mayura was, Nagomi always felt inferior and unable to be the best. She couldn't understand what she was doing wrong, even smiling felt forced. Mayura noticed Nagomi's sadness and thought back to a time when Nagomi had loved interacting with people who enjoyed cosplay, even if they were beginners. But then one day, Nagomi declared she wanted to become a professional and revealed that an agency had contacted her. Mayura couldn't accept Nagomi's offer to join her, seeing cosplay as just a hobby, whereas Nagomi seemed to lose sight of her own success, focusing only on the shadows and ignoring her own brilliance. Even though Nagomi was more popular and sold more than Mayura, she never recognized it, and every negative comment deeply affected her. Mayura couldn't understand why Nagomi didn't love what she was doing anymore, as Mayura herself had only recently come to understand that. Deciding to step back, Mayura told Nagomi that she didn't want to compete with her. She wanted Nagomi to meet an extraordinary girl, someone she'd remember forever. Mayura's cosplay came from a deep love for the character, and she was confident that everyone would fall in love with it as soon as they saw her, because she looked like a true angel. As soon as Lilial appeared, everyone's attention shifted towards her. Nagomi was taken aback because, despite all the obstacles, Riza had managed to lift her spirits and decided to compete with her. Mayura simply waved at Lilial and left her alone, and then quickly went inside to change her clothes and take pictures of Lilial, as she looked so adorable. Ojino and Okumura offered their support, while Riza excitedly announced that anyone could take as many photos as they wanted. Suddenly, one of the photographers noticed that Lilial seemed to be glowing. Riza, filled with admiration for Lilial and for cosplay itself, realized she no longer needed to question whether she should cosplay. It was clear that she was passionate about it. The crowd, captivated by Lilial's cuteness, grew larger. Nagomi, feeling a pang of envy, couldn't understand why Riza seemed so happy and at ease. Soon, however, Nagomi began to see the truth. Riza hadn't come to compete, she had come to showcase her cosplay. Nagomi recognized the same joy on Riza's face that she had once felt at the start of her own career. She recalled how awkward she had been at first, but how much she had loved her 2D character. When she finally cosplayed a character she admired, people praised her for being cute, and that praise fueled her passion for cosplay. It was then that Nagomi began to embrace herself, finding great joy in being seen as adorable. But once she became a professional, Nagomi realized that she had closed herself off from the audience and stopped loving herself. She couldn't pinpoint where things had gone wrong, but she understood that she had lost sight of what truly mattered. Dropping her staff in front of everyone, Nagomi had an epiphany. She now knew the answer to the question that had been haunting her. Apologizing, Nagomi explained that she needed more time, as she had decided to return to where she had begun. Mayura was relieved that Nagomi hadn't given up or crumbled under the pressure. Nagomi thanked Risa for helping her rediscover the simple joy that made cosplay so much fun. This sparked something inside of Nagomi, who vowed to herself that she'll make the gods of cosplay smile upon her. She wants everyone to look at her, especially Kai, whom she has been looking for all this time. On the other hand, our goblin duo realizes that Liliel had lit something inside of Nagomi, which caused her crowd to grow even further. However, Okumura points out that Liliel's own crowd is also steadily growing bigger, although not as fast as Nagomi's. Seeing this, Ojuno marvels at Liliel, who he thinks is quite good at making her crowd stay. When cosplaying, one of the most important factors to keep a crowd's retention is to have different poses and expressions. He mentions that Liliel is a prodigy at this, having remembered every single one of Liliel's poses. Most newcomers would only have 5 to 10 different poses when cosplaying. Liliel then continues to change her pose, wanting to reenact one of the scenes she saw in the anime. This of course excites all the thirsty goblins in the crowd, who continue to take pictures of our lovely angel. In the midst of all this hype, our Dew Goblin also finally went in to take some pictures of Liliel for themselves. However, deep inside, Risa is feeling a tad bit nervous since this is her first time in front of a huge crowd. But after remembering all the hard work she had put into this cosplay, her happiness overshadowed this nerve-wracking feeling, causing her to shine even brighter. She then thanks Nagomi for helping her realize something truly important. To Risa, cosplaying is the way she shows her love for Liliel. It is a place where she feels safe and could truly be herself. Nagomi also began to acknowledge Risa after initially writing her off as a newbie. She felt comfortable competing with Risa, unlike Mayura, who always got her blood pumping. In her thoughts, she accidentally called Risa her rival, as she wants to shine brighter with her. The crows keep on getting bigger and bigger as more people are surrounding Liliel. Nagomi's photographer comments on the atmosphere of the event, mentioning that these kinds of crowds usually only form during Comiket. They're in shock that these many people are hyped for a brand new cosplayer, believing that Risa might just be a new cosplay queen. Remembering that she had gone past her time, Nagomi raised her hand, marking the end of her photo session. As she tried to apologize to her manager, she immediately cut her sentence, mentioning that this was the cosplayer that she wanted to work with all this time. The end of the event soon came close, so Risa also concluded her photo session, thanking everyone in the crowd for their support. But before anyone could get her information, Risa sprinted away due to her cosplay almost falling apart. Upon reaching the main building, she dashed straight towards Okumura and hugged him. Risa was relieved and sorry at the same time, causing her to break down in tears. Okumura comforted her and told her she was the main character today and that everything will be okay. Sensei secretly watched their wholesome interaction and left soon after. However, as she was leaving, she was met with Eri, who gave her a finishing blow, ending her lineage. She then frustratedly scolded her for costing everyone all this time, calling her stupid. Eri mentioned that cosplaying was the thing that brought her together and that she cherished all the time they spent together. Cosplay might have been everything to Mayura, but she told her to not throw everything else too. Meanwhile, as our angel is about to enter the changing room, she accidentally meets Nagomi. She instantly fangirls over Nagomi's cosplay, with Nagomi doing the same over Risa's costume. It was then when she finally realized that talking to Risa was so much fun, and they decided to take a picture together. They also exchanged numbers, but were soon interrupted by Okumura. However, the moment Nagomi saw Okumura, her inner demons came out. After finally meeting the Kai she's been looking for, she shyly introduces herself and instantly becomes jealous of Risa. Nagomi then tried to invite Okumura into cosplaying Kai, while sneakily asking for his number. The scene then shifts into the changing room, where Risa interacts with the other cosplayers who complimented her for her performance today. But everyone's attention quickly shifts to Nagomi as she enters the public dressing room. Turns out her private changing room was overdue and she had no choice but to change in the public room. Instantly, she was reminded of the mean comments she had read online and felt like an outcast there. She tried to undress but was unable to reach her zipper and contemplated on calling her assistant. As she was on the verge of tears, a few cosplayers noticed her and came to help. Not long after, she found herself being complimented by more and more people, which made her shed a tear. All this time, she never liked herself and saw everyone as her enemy. But today's event taught her a lot and helped her realize that it was all in her head. The scene shifts to outside the venue where Nagomi tells Riza to attend the summer Comic-Con. She then tells Riza that everyone wants to get pictures of the Lilial they saw today, showing Riza her post on her social media, which got a lot of likes and shares. Apparently, Nagomi had uploaded a few of Riza's pictures online and it garnered a lot of attention. Before leaving, she tells Riza to enjoy the moment as she believes that Riza will also be famous one day. On the train, our goblin immediately passes out on Okumura's shoulder due to exhaustion. Normally, Okumura would have freaked out, but he quickly remembered that this was Riza, not Lilial. Not long after, Riza woke up, but Okumura told her to rest more and placed her head on his shoulders. Riza then told Okumura that she loved him so much, and Okumura also reciprocated her feelings. Somewhere on the train, Sensei had accidentally eavesdropped on her lovebirds, but as she was spotted, she quickly realized that the relationship they were talking about was different than the one she pictured. The next day, Sensei submitted their report to the school's principal, who was concerned about whether it was okay for the other students to see their club's activities. In another scene, Lilial enters her classroom but is quickly alerted by Mikari, who scolds her as she's in big trouble. As they glanced at the blackboard, Riza saw a message from her teacher informing her that she had failed all her subjects in the exam. Mikari sighed and commented that Riza had been completely irresponsible in the manga club. Meanwhile, Okumura sat waiting for a reply when Sensei entered the room, announcing that she had received news. Sensei told him their application had been approved, but their report would remain confidential. Okumura was unhappy and questioned why a simple cosplay activity needed to be kept secret. Sensei explained that she had tried to convince the principal to make the report public, but he had concerns. The principal didn't object to the activity itself, but felt that today's youth were fragile. If the report were published, it could lead to bullying in class or spread rumors online. Such reactions, he feared, could harm the students. Sensei was surprised by how much the principal cared for his students' well-being. The principal admitted he had made many mistakes in the past and didn't want more errors to grow from this situation. He decided against publishing the report to avoid future regret, advising Sensei that sometimes it's better to protect students, even if it means not fully agreeing with them. Okumura began to understand that the principal was making this decision to shield them from potential risks. He thanked Sensei for her efforts and wanted to hear what Riza thought when she entered with the student council. Riza had already agreed to the terms. Both Okumura and Riza thanked the student council president, who gave them the go-ahead but reminded them not to create any inappropriate content. Okumura was thrilled that their club had been saved. Sensei suddenly embraced Okumura and Riza in celebration, to which Okumura awkwardly remarked that things were getting a little too close. Sensei cheekily responded, asking where the downside was in that. Riza suddenly recalled that Mayura was in fact their sensei. Just then, Mikara walked in and saw the group hug, deciding to join in. Okumura, wanting to lighten the mood, challenged Sensei to a video game but quickly realized she was a formidable opponent, humorously nicknaming her the Milky Queen Succubus Mayura. Overhearing this, Mikari noticed Sensei's cosplay costume, while Riza explained that their teacher was a legendary cosplayer. Sensei, slightly irritated, corrected them, stating that it had been a long time ago and that she wasn't old, just 22. Mikari then mischievously asked Okumura if he would marry Sensei. Okumura listed all of Sensei's admirable qualities, making her blush and leaving her flustered. However, he ultimately said he would decline, explaining that Sensei was too real for him. Mikari was satisfied, but Sensei was clearly not pleased with the response. Riza then reminded Sensei that she had promised to share some life hacks. Sensei emphasized that the most crucial tip was taking accurate measurements. When Riza began to undress, Sensei quickly stopped her, and Okumura took that as his cue to leave, citing the student council's rule that nothing should disrupt the club's focus. Mikari, observing Sensei and Riza, noted that both of them had perfect proportions and large eyes. Sensei commented that it's much easier to become a cosplayer nowadays, as makeup used to be expensive and wigs were unavailable, forcing people to dye their hair. Just then, Mikari received a message from her manager canceling her upcoming cosplay activities, leaving her disappointed. Meanwhile, Okumura, in a surprising move, decided to throw away his private collection. The student council president noticed this and was impressed by his responsible behavior. She added, somewhat embarrassed, that some people feel emotional when parting with such things, even mentioning that Okumura could always repurchase them when he turned 18. Embarrassed, she decided to pray with him to lighten the situation. On the way to school, the student council president asked Okumura about any cosplay plans for the day. The next morning, Mijuno called Okumura with some surprising news. Rumors about Lilial had spread across the city. Mijuno explained that the buzz was due to Mr. Camera, a well-known photographer who only captures legendary cosplayers. If his photos were uploaded online, the cosplayer would instantly gain widespread recognition. The previous Mag Mr. Camera published a new article featuring 5 rising stars in the cosplay scene, with Lilial securing 5th place. The article detailed everything about Lilial and her cosplay style, though Ojuno didn't have high hopes for her popularity. This angered Okumura, who fiercely defended Lilial, calling her the sweetest person in the world. The 4th place in the ranking went to Nono, a rising star known as the Ice Queen. When Risa returned to the club, Okumura excitedly shared the news that Lilial had ranked 5th among the rising stars. Risa checked the comments on the post and was overjoyed to see that people appreciated how much she loved Lilial. She felt an overwhelming sense of happiness viewing 5th place as just the beginning of her journey in the cosplay world. Okumura shared her enthusiasm but reminded her that cosplay wasn't only about competition, it was about passion and self-expression. However, an unusual girl appeared nearby, her eyes filled with jealousy over Lilial's 5th place ranking. The next day, Okumura accompanies Risa to a material shop in order to make her new costume. Inside, Okumura is amazed as it's his first time going to a material shop. Risa then explains that a huge chunk of the customers here are cosplayers, explaining all the cosplay lying around the store. She then excuses herself and goes to find the items needed for her cosplay. Okumura also checks out the items inside the store, but he soon spots someone struggling with a heavy fabric piece. Being the guy he is, he offered the person some help but was met with a death stare, causing the girl to flee. On her way out of the store, this nerdy otaku accidentally spotted Risa and recognized her as Lilial. Slowly, she walked towards our pretty gremlin and muttered Risa's position as the 5th place. However, Risa somehow recognized her as Nono, the Ice Queen, who was ranked 4th on Mr. Camera's list. Unfazed by this, the girl reached into her bag and took out an item which turned out to be a flyer. She then pointed at Risa, who thought of it as a challenge from her. After this exchange, the weird girl fled, and soon Okumura came to check on Risa. She then told Okumura what just happened, and they both deduced that the girl wanted Risa to participate in the upcoming event. This upset Risa a little bit because she only wanted to make friends with all the cosplayers she found. However, she believes that Nono isn't a bad person and accepted the invitation to her challenge. But they soon realized that the event was based on characters from a specific game. Instantly, Risa then reminded Okumura about the collaboration that happened between Lilial and that specific game. Okumura was shocked, thinking that it would be near impossible for Risa to finish a new costume in just a week. But our no-life gremlin quickly reminded him who she was and set off to complete her new costume. The scene then shifts to a dark room where our weird girl starts to undress. She then quickly gets into her cosplay and reflects on the encounter at the material shop. Turns out, our weird girl Nono is just an introvert with communication disorder. She initially started cosplaying because she wanted to make new friends. However, her introvertedness led her to fumble every chance she had with new people. But to her, today was a huge step forward as she succeeded in inviting Risa into the cosplay event she was about to attend. A week later, the day of the event finally arrived and our gremlin club could be seen at the venue of the event, accompanied by Sensei. She then quickly shows off her new overpriced camera, which made Okumura jealous. But amidst their conversation, Nono was secretly watching them from behind. She was happy that Risa actually listened to her invitation and wanted to thank her for it. However, being the awkward person she is, Nono could only hide behind a pillar before soon being spotted by Risa. Upon noticing the uneasy Nono, she tried to greet her. But as she began to speak, Nono took off running in the opposite direction. Risa mistook her gesture as hatred towards her but brushed it off nonetheless. Suddenly, Nagomi greeted our duo and instantly blushed upon seeing Okumura, who resembled her Prince Kai. From afar, Nono witnessed as the Heavenly Queens surrounded Risa, thinking that she was already approved by them. Back to our gremlins, Sensei told Risa to hide the fact that she was her teacher and lied to Nagomi, telling her that Risa was her cosplay disciple. Turns out, Nagomi was here as she is part of the event, shocking Risa. The girl explained that she is scheduled to be at almost all cosplay events in the city due to her reputation. Hearing this, Risa's face quickly lit up as she was happy that she could meet her more often. The topic soon shifted onto the 5 rising stars in the world of cosplay. Risa then explained that she ended up here because she was challenged by Nono, the Ice Queen. Shocked to hear that Risa had entered another challenge, Nagomi thought that maybe cosplayers found joy in challenging each other. But on the other side of the venue, Nono was in pure shock as she didn't know Risa interpreted her invitation as a challenge. The scene then shifts to her childhood where she drew characters for her friends. However, as she grew older, people around her started to mock her and eventually she was all alone. Even her own mother disapproved of her activities, telling her to throw away her toys. But one fateful day, she accidentally crossed paths with some cosplayers. It was then that she was inspired to try out cosplay as she thought that it'll help her connect with new people. The first time she tried cosplay, she felt comfortable wearing it, and somehow she began to accept herself. She soon attended her first event, but thought that it was a huge disaster as she couldn't even get a single word out. She then noticed the ranking that was posted online where her eyes were caught by a certain Lilio cosplayer. Back to the present, she strengthened her resolve and told to herself that today will be the day she makes her first friend. The event soon starts with Nagomi as the host. Inside the changing room, Nano wanted to clear the misunderstanding with Riza. However, Riza was intimidated by her presence and ran away. As Nano was about to put on her costume, she realized a huge mistake. She invited Riza without thinking about what costume she could wear at this event. But luckily, our crafty gremlin had a plan up her sleeve. She had remembered Lilio's collab with the game and made this special costume with the help of Sensei. Upon seeing Riza in her cosplay, everyone was speechless as she was cute beyond help. Something also awoke inside Nono, which made imagine having a photo shoot alongside Riza. On their way to the main stage, everyone's eyes were fixed on the two rising stars. They soon faced off, which shocked the audience even more. However, as Nano wanted to reach out to Lilio, nothing came out of her mouth. Feeling defeated, she tried to walk away, but suddenly Riza invited her to a photo shoot. Tranced by her invitation, she didn't know how to respond and simply continued walking away. Of course, everyone including Lilio mistook this as a fight declaration. This left Riza embarrassed, and soon Okumura came to start her own photo shoot. On the other side of the room, people gathered to take pictures of Nono, but she didn't say a single thing and proceeded to run out of the venue. Turns out she was really troubled with what just happened. She felt like it was useless for her to come here if she couldn't even make a new friend. Back at middle school, Nono used to be great at talking about the things she loved. However, her friends made fun of her for it, which led to her current disorder. As her mind was about to break from all the stress, Okumura suddenly came to her side. Noticing Okumura nearby, Nono quickly ran away due to her social anxiety. But Okumura called out, clarifying that he was Lilio's photographer and just wanted to talk. Recognizing him as the man from the store, Nano felt a sense of obligation toward him. However, her intense expression startled Okumura, prompting him to apologize and explain the situation awkwardly. Upon hearing that Okumura himself struggled to talk to people, his words struck a chord with her. He then asked her about her feelings toward Lilio, but Nano found herself unable to speak. Misunderstanding her silence, Okumura assumed that she disliked Lilio. He began sharing his own thoughts, urging Nono to express hers. Reassuring her, Okumura told her that true otakus don't judge others for their tastes. Hearing this made Nono tear up, but she still couldn't bring herself to speak. Sensing her struggle, Okumura decided to wait for her response, even turning his back to give her more space. After some time, Nono's breathing slowed as she calmed herself. She finally gathered enough courage to thank Okumura for his help at the store. Okumura was surprised, but Nono, realizing she had just spoken to someone, panicked and ran away. Back at the event, everyone was busy taking pictures of the rising star Lilio, but Riza found it hard to focus, still worried about the possibility that Nono disliked her. Noticing a raised hand in the distance, Riza quickly announced she was taking a break and left to speak with Sensei. Sensei saw Riza's unease and asked if she was okay. Suddenly, another enthusiastic fan rushed over, concerned about Riza's state. At first, Nagomi thought Riza felt pressured by her presence, but she soon realized Riza was still troubled about Nono. Both Sensei and Nagomi then comforted Riza, telling her it was okay if not everyone liked her. Nagomi shared her own experience from her early cosplay days, reminding her that even top-tier cosplayers couldn't win over everyone. She asked Riza to consider her own feelings, encouraging her to embrace her own opinions too. But the ever-optimistic Riza confessed that she simply wanted to be friends with Nono. Nagomi, supporting her, advised Riza to express her feelings directly to Nono. Meanwhile, Nono felt relieved she had managed to speak to someone. Thinking back to her last encounter with Riza, she realized she needed to clear the air. Both girls hurried into the venue, searching for one another. Okumura also entered, asking about Riza, only for Sensei to inform him that Riza had gone to find Nono to share her feelings. As Nono was looking for Riza, she was stopped by a group of eager fans wanting photos. Feeling awkward, she slipped into her Ice Queen persona, unintentionally giving them the cold, commanding look they wanted. The fans, thrilled, thanked her. The crowd grew, assuming it was an organized photo shoot. From across the venue, the host announced that there were only 30 minutes left of the cosplay event. Soon, more fans spotted Lilio and rushed to request photos. However, as much as Lilio wanted to oblige, she realized that time was running short. Luckily, Nagomi was nearby and swiftly drew attention away from Riza, giving her a chance to slip away unnoticed. While Nono was deep in thought, she suddenly heard Riza calling her name from across the room. Riza approached and, to everyone's surprise, asked Nono if they could do a photo shoot together. Nano froze, unable to express her true feelings, her anxiety causing her to tremble as she tried to muster the courage to speak to her idol. Determined to make amends, Risa grabbed Nono's hands and pulled her into the photo shoot. Although Risa feared Nono might end up disliking her for this bold move, she wanted to befriend as many cosplayers as possible. Risa struck Lilial's iconic pose from the game, and seeing this, Nono felt inspired and followed suit. The crowd went wild, witnessing two of the newest rising stars striking iconic poses together. More people gathered, eager to capture photos of the rare collaboration. Seizing the moment, Nono and Risa continued posing for their fans. Unbeknownst to Risa, Nono was grateful that she had reached out to her first, feeling joy at the prospect of finally making a friend. After the photo shoot, Risa apologized to Nono for forcing her into the photo shoot. Nono responded with her usual intense expression, which made Risa believe that Nono wanted nothing to do with her. Risa returned to Okumura, who asked if she was okay with how things had turned out. She replied that she couldn't control how others felt about her, but just being able to share a photo shoot with Nono was more than enough for her. Meanwhile, Nono was wrestling with her own self-doubt. She still couldn't bring herself to share her true feelings with Risa, feeling unworthy and burdened by past trauma. However, the day's events had given her a glimpse of hope, a vision of who she could become. Today, she had managed to step into her character, becoming someone other than the Nono she knew. With that realization, she began to believe that she could change, leaving her old self behind. After some inner struggle, Nono finally gathered the courage to tug on Risa's wristband. She shyly asked if Risa would be her friend, and to her surprise, Risa happily agreed. Overcoming her biggest fear, Nono broke down in tears, overjoyed at having taken a significant step forward. Meanwhile, in another studio, Mikari was wrapping up her usual modeling photo shoot. She was frustrated that her plan to win Okumura's heart by becoming a famous model hadn't worked and decided to turn to cosplay as her next move. After the shoot, she visited her manager to inform him of her new intention to start cosplaying. The scene shifts back to Nono, who is thrilled to have finally become friends with Risa. As she happily stares at her phone, and Nagomi suddenly approaches her, questioning if she is truly Nono. Nagomi reveals that Nono looks remarkably similar to the Ice Queen and confronts her, believing she had picked a fight with Lilial. Still unused to socializing, Nono stays silent, which worsens the misunderstanding. This leads Nagomi to challenge her directly, urging Nono to set her sights on bigger cosplayers, specifically the one in front of her. Before leaving, Nagomi gives Nono a long lecture about cosplayers sharing a common purpose and assures her that she'll eventually find friends. Touched by Nagomi's words, Nono finally gathers the courage to thank her. As Nagomi walks away, their mutual Otaku friends enter the scene and give her a tight hug. It turns out that they all overheard her speech and are proud of Nagomi for standing up for Risa. Even Okumura personally thanks Nagomi for supporting Risa in her struggles. Meanwhile, Nono reflects, feeling overjoyed to have overcome her biggest hurdle. She then shyly engages Risa in conversation, asking about her cosplay preferences. They quickly bond, fangirling over their favorite anime and cosplays. Nono realizes that her inner voice was only trying to protect her from being hurt. Today, she makes peace with her past, forgiving her former friends and herself for everything that happened. Returning to the present, Nono listens to Risa's endless stream of otaku lore, finding it fascinating. The scene then shifts to a big Gyat blonde girl rushing into the lost and found area, relieved to discover that all her lost items were gathered there. The staff, mesmerized by her appearance, note that she looks like a character straight out of a manga. On her way home, she overhears a group of smelly otakus admiring photos from the day. She boldly joins them, sharing in their fan appreciation for Lilial and Nono. The otakus are flustered as she approaches, her presence contrasting sharply with their own. She then introduces herself as Aria Kisaki, an aspiring cosplayer aiming for fame. A few days later, Nono meets up with Risa and Okumura after school, gathering outside the studio for a cosplay photo shoot. Nervously, Nono asks about Risa's outfit only to find out it's her school uniform. Excited for her first outing with friends, Nono is also relieved to learn that the studio is managed by Sensei's friend, Shika-chan, which means they won't have to pay. Upon entering, they're greeted by handsome zesty cashier, Shika-chan, who recognizes Risa's uniform and asks if she knows Ta-sensei, his drinking friend. It turns out that Shika-chan is an old friend of Mayura's, often roped into cosplaying whenever she needs a male character. But when Risa inquires about the rental fee for the fantasy room, Shika-chan insists it's free, as he's the owner. All he asks is that they recommend the studio or become famous cosplayers. The group is surprised to learn that Shika-chan is also the mastermind behind Mayura's cosrooms. He offers to take their photos, but Risa insists she trusts only Okumura for her pictures. Shika-chan then mentions he'll be photographing a new solo cosplayer today who's looking for cosplay friends. As they enter the studio, which resembles a typical Isekai office, Okumura, touched by Risa's trust, silently vows to do his best. In the changing room, Risa apologizes to Nono for dragging her thanks to Okumura and asks him to send her the pictures. Somehow, Okumura couldn't believe that the Nono standing here today was the same person he'd met at the material shop. She then asked his permission to post some pictures on her social media, and together, they began browsing through their online posts. However, Risa revealed that she had no plans of creating a social media account. Her goal in cosplay was to become the true embodiment of Lilial, rather than to build a name for herself. Seeing Risa's dedication, Nono began to second-guess her own motives, but she quickly shook off her doubts, determined to be someone worthy of standing beside Lilial. In her favorite anime, Nokil is a knight sworn to protect Lilial at any cost. As her first and only friend, Nono vowed to Risa that she would be the one to protect her. Risa was caught off guard, blushing at the declaration. But before the moment could settle, they heard another girl's voice outside the room. Before Chika-chan could introduce her, Aria dashed in and grabbed Risa's hand. She explained that she'd been searching for the group ever since the Cinderella Stars event. Risa was momentarily speechless, unable to process why such a beautiful girl would want to be friends with them. Seeing Aria getting close to Risa so effortlessly shattered Nono's confidence. She couldn't believe that what took her days to accomplish, Aria managed in seconds. Feeling like her photo shoot was being hijacked, Nono finally reached her limit. She confronted Aria, pointing out that her costume didn't match their theme and therefore she couldn't join them. But Aria, uninterested in the theme, insisted she just wanted to cosplay with them. As she vented, Nono finally lost it, asserting that there was no way they could be friends with someone like Aria, given her past experiences with girls like her. Risa tried to calm her down, urging her to give Aria a chance as she might be different. Nono then questioned Aria's interests, only to be stunned by her answer. Aria's main goal was to become a famous cosplayer, without much interest in anime or manga. Despite this, Risa attempted to defuse the situation, but Nono was left feeling hurt. Okumura, noticing her distress, pulled Risa aside and reminded her that she had originally made plans with Nono. He pointed out that it would be inconsiderate to change those plans without Nono's consent. Just as Risa was about to apologize, the argument between Nono and Aria escalated. Nono pointed out that with her looks, Aria could easily become famous in other areas. However, Aria retorted that fame meant nothing to her unless it was in cosplay. Hearing this, Nono softened a bit and eventually agreed to let Aria join the photo shoot. But as she was about to change, she shyly mentioned that there was a boy in the room and Chika-chan quickly escorted her to the changing area. This then marks the end of today's anime recap. If you enjoyed the video and want more of it, please support the channel by leaving a like and subscribe. Let's help us reach our current goal of 20,000 subscribers.